So welcome everybody tonight. My name is Patty Schramm. I'm the Parent Resource Trainer Coordinator for the SALT Talks. We are going to be talking to a couple support groups tonight. We were to this April. In April, we were talking about getting stuck. I just wanted to try to address some issues about what happens when you feel like you're stuck. Who do you reach out to? So that's what we're focusing on all this month. So I brought in several support groups. If they are not located in your area, just to let you know, just reach out to them, and maybe they know of someone in your area that handles the same kind of supports. So with that, I am going to let let's see what we have. Amyi and Stephanie, did you guys want to go first?
Sure, let me share my screen. Stephanie, do you want to go first?
Sure, I can go first. I'm Stephanie Bear. I'm the Young Adult Coordinator at the Down Syndrome Association of Greater Cincinnati. And what my role is I really support families with whatever they come to me for. So whether they have questions about housing, transportation, social relationships, anything. So we mostly serve families with Down syndrome, but we do get families who call who their child or loved one has another type of developmental disability and they haven't found supports other places. And so we'll really work with anyone. So we are the Down Syndrome Association. We prioritize working with people with Down syndrome, but we also are open to helping any family that comes to us. So some of the support that we offer for families, Joni Elkers is our school age coordinator, and a very large part of her job is going to school meetings with families. And so she will help go to like the IEP meetings, behavior meetings, and she helps families just kind of navigate that and to know what to ask for. And I also can do that with our adults 18 and over. Joni works with up to 18 and I work with 18 to 34. And so I can provide that support as well for IEP meetings, IFSP meetings, kind of whatever families need. And we offer a lot of programs at our office, and that just is based off of what the needs are of our adults and our teens. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I didn't mention. We do offer some natural supports to families and to siblings, adult siblings. And what that can look like is sometimes when we have programs going on in our lobby area, the parents will kind of congregate and they'll bounce ideas off of each other and ask others based off of their experiences, things that they've gone through. This Thursday, we are going to be having a singles mixer, and I've had lots of families asking questions. And so in our reminder email, I did tell them that we're going to have a room just open to the families. It's not going to be structured or anything, but they all have questions. And so we just want to provide that space for families to get together. And really, people can come to us with whatever questions. And if we don't know the answers, we'll help people find them. So really, whatever families need, we're here for them. I'll turn it over to Amyi.
Thanks, Stephanie. So like Stephanie mentioned, I mean, our organization, we cover a 12-county area. So it's a very vast area. Anybody with a family with Down syndrome, or if there's another disability or something out there that you think overlaps with some of the services, give us a call, we'll help. I believe she mentioned our school age services we provide, the adult services we provide. We also do over 35. We've got a coordinator that works with that population as well. And we work with anyone that has either a prenatal diagnosis or a new baby with Down syndrome. So we certainly get to know that family. We do personal visits. We have a great, welcome basket and resources and information and that sort of thing for families that are just starting on this journey too. So we have that one-on-one support with the coordinators like Stephanie, which is always has been, we've been told that's a great help to families, especially starting out on the journey and then hitting different transitions of the journey. One of the other things that we do as an organization is we connect families to each other. There's sometimes nothing more valuable than actually speaking with another parent or caregiver about situations and getting information from them and sharing information and of whatever it could be, because, you know, so many things come up. And one way in which we do that are community groups. So our community groups, as you can see there, I have on the screen, it's our vision that they provide support, connection, information, and be a resource to families in a warm, welcoming, empathetic environment. We have Facebook groups for our different community groups that we have, so people can stay connected between gatherings. These community groups are led by volunteers, and most of them are led by parent volunteers or caregiver volunteers. We ask that they do some of the groups. We have area groups, so no matter where you live, there's some sort of coverage in that area. We have special interest groups, so we have a dad's group, a teen club that does some fun recreation things. We've got a grandparent group. We've got a homeschooling group. So if somebody has a loved one Down syndrome and they're starting on that journey or have been doing it, to be a resource to each other. We've got birth year groups, kind of, you know, it's kind of fun. We set those up. We started in 2011. So we go back there and we have all the way up to this year, 2023. So people can connect actually with someone that had a baby or adopted a baby within, you know, the year, and they can kind of stay with each other throughout the years and get back together and talk and, you know, little reunions and see how far everyone's come with everything going on. So there's a lot of ways to make connections. And we have found that that has been, you know, a really great resource for all families. I know Stephanie kind of talked a little bit about it, but our organization also offers programs throughout the year. They're usually on a quarterly rhythm, the way that we do them. We have an empowerment series, which are maybe classes that are 4 to 6 weeks in length, usually once a week. Just different topics and different things that we offer. Music, you know, different kind of therapies, different kind of therapeutic like play, play groups, music. Stephanie's done some incredible programs for math and reading, speech, and those kinds of things for adults, because you never stop learning, right? So it's always good to keep that going. We have enrichment classes, and that might be like a one-time class, maybe a dance class here and there, or what other kind of thing, cooking classes, that kind of thing, different skills that people can work on. We've got socials, which are always very well attended. Everybody likes to have a good time. And that's important. You know, we want to enrich everyone's lives, however that may look. It's not always about learning in a classroom kind of setting. Social skills are always important too, and to have things to do for our mental health and well-being. So we have a lot of great socials. We've got tutoring that we do in the summer and the winter for school age kids, loved ones. So we have that to offer. We've got a bike camp in the summer. So if people are ready to get on 2 wheels or try, we've got that going on. Virtual classes, we decided through COVID that a lot of those virtual classes were really helpful. People cooking in their own kitchens, bingo, again, you know, just something fun to kind of throw out there. There's some, you know, adults with Down syndrome, that transportation is a huge issue, and they're able to log on and connect with us that way. So we keep some of those classes going. Another offering that we have are social clubs for adults with Down syndrome. That is a club where we have it run by a couple of volunteers, and they do monthly outings together all the time as a club. They may go out to eat, they may go bowling, they may do a craft, they might go to karaoke, whatever they want to do for those weeks. And the volunteers are there to kind of help support them and guide them in planning and communicating and getting everybody on board with whatever going on that month. And then lastly, we also offer a Down syndrome and autism spectrum disorder support group. Sometimes dual diagnoses are very common with people with Down syndrome. We have found this one to be very common. So we set up a support group for that. So that is we do it virtually. It's just a time, and it's facilitated by a mental health therapist. So we do have kind of a facilitator for that rather than it just being open-ended. So she helps guide and keep the conversation going. and make sure everyone is heard of what's going on. So we also offer that as well. So we really do a lot in any given month. We're busy over there. We're in Norwood, is where our offices and our empowerment center are. But we do programs and we host programs kind of all over, like I said, our 12 county area as well. We try to make it as accessible as we can to everyone. So that is our organization. So thanks for the opportunity to let people know about it.
Thank you. I've heard a lot about that bike camp over the years. A lot of people really enjoy that bike camp. And if their child is not diagnosed with Down syndrome, they're welcome to also join some of the
yes,
certain events, or
right. Obviously, our focus is Down syndrome, but so many things can overlap. For instance, our bike camp, we open it only to people with Down syndrome until a certain date, and then if the spots aren't filled, we'll open it up, and other kind of families with loved ones with disabilities are welcome to join in. So it is very popular this year. There must be a lot of people ready to get going on that. And then, like with any of our other programs, really, if we know there's so many things out there that don't have support, and we are happy to help where we can with that as well. But it is going to be Down syndrome focused for sure.
I know there's a big concern, like especially with that first diagnosis, where to go. When they get the diagnosis at the hospital, with you guys down in Cincinnati, I would say that, do they refer like parents to your group?
Well, that we communicate with all of the doctors at the different hospitals. We have outreach specialists that actually go in and do that, drop off materials. So then when there is a baby born, they can give those materials to the family. They don't notify us because of HIPAA laws. They can't do that. But they can give all of our information to them. So typically that's where we hear from families is, after their kind of initial diagnosis, they want to get started and find support. Sometimes we hear from other family members. Hey, I had a grandchild born with Down syndrome. I looked you, I Googled you and found you, and those kinds of things. So we get families from wherever we can, and then we try to reach out and let them know we're here when they're ready to start. We're not going to, push anybody to start looking for different resources until they're ready. But yeah, we're here for that. And really, the welcome baskets are so great and warm and inviting. And our early matters coordinator, Maggie, she's just so sweet, great energy, lots of great information. So, and we do prenatal too. So if somebody finds out prenatally that they're going to have a baby with Down syndrome, they can reach out to us right away, and we can start giving them information and easing their minds about the beautiful baby that they're going to be having, and be sure to let them feel that they're empowered and ready for when the baby comes too.
Thank you. I think your contact information was at the top.
Oh, it is.
If you can scroll back up, or you can put your email, your contact information in the chat box. If anybody wants to, copy and paste. We do have this document out. We had shared the Google Salt Drive, and we also have it in our live binder. Does anybody have any questions for Stephanie or Amyi before we go to the next speaker? Okay. Well, they'll be on. Amyi, I know, Stephanie, I think you said you had to go, but Amyi, will you be hanging on for a little bit in case someone has another question? Okay, very good. Thank you. The next one we have to present is, I'm looking for Helen. Mary, I'll let you go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about your group.
Great. Thank you, Patty. So I'm Helen mhricher. I'm the CEO of Autism Connections. You might know us as formerly known as Autism Society Greater Cincinnati. So I think for us, what I want to start with is that big news. that as of January 1st of this year, we made a deliberate shift to become an all Cincinnati, 100% Cincinnati nonprofit. So we moved away from the national network to become Autism Connections, which is very exciting for us. It allows us to do some of the new and exciting things that I'm going to share with you briefly tonight. Some people ask us, so why that name? Well, I'm going to be honest. It was because we went out to you, the community, and said, so when you think of what we do, what do you think of? And it did not matter the response. The word connect was in everything they said. Hey, you connect us with resources. You connect us with programs. You connect us with providers. You connect. And so we went, okay, we are going to embrace the idea that we are connectors. So that's where that name comes from. We're very excited about it. So what I want to do is take you through a couple of new things that we're doing. And I'm going to share my screen and actually pull up our website, because really we do so much. I could talk about it for hours and we don't have that kind of time. So, and I will tell you that I am teaching one of our new and exciting programs here at 6:30. So I'm trying to do 47 things at once, which is poor planning on my part, let's just say. So I want to share with you our new mission, which again, really excited about. Our mission is, we broadened ourselves from just Greater Cincinnati. So I want people to understand that we serve all of Southwest Ohio. We didn't write and Northern Kentucky. We probably should have done that, but then a mission statement gets really long. So we still are serving Northern Kentucky, but we also wanted to be able to say to our friends in Middletown and Dayton, hey, we have been serving you. And by just saying Greater Cincinnati, that also didn't sound like it included you. So, and we're really doing that very deliberately in 4 ways. And we've really, really focused ourselves on education, resources, those connections, and lifelong support. So those are very broad. I will tell you, we also have made a deliberate focus to focus on growing programming and growing what we do within the transition, age, and adult programming. That does not mean that any of our young programming has gone away, right? Our parent support groups are still here. Our Kids Exploring Fund, our preschool program, our school age program, all of those still here. What it means is we took, again, listening to our community, a deliberate move to saying, what do you see the greatest needs are? And by and large, families were telling us that adulthood, where we spend most of our lives, is a scary, unknown space. And there aren't enough resources, and there aren't enough supports, and there just isn't enough in general. So we took that to heart and said, you're absolutely right. So we're going to increase our programming for transition age and adults. And so what I really want to show you tonight is our big new program under resources and education. And we've tried to divide this up to make it hopefully make sense for folks. So under education, we've added a new program called our Peers program. And this program is really, really exciting. Peers is an evidence-based social skills program for individuals with autism and intellectual and social disabilities, or social challenges rather. We started this in January of this year. And so when I leave you, I'm actually leaving to go teach my adult class. We are on session 4 of dating, which is kind of exciting. But really what Peers does is take the relationship skills, the social skills, and all of those unwritten rules that so many folks with autism and other disabilities, related disabilities, don't necessarily understand, because quite frankly, we don't teach them. We just assume people will figure them out. And this really takes them and demystifies them. It breaks it down into logical chunks. It breaks them down into steps and the rules, right? The rules of how we enter a conversation or exit a conversation, the rules of how we have a phone call, the rules of dating for adults. And so we're really excited. We, as an organization, are certified in teaching this program that comes out of UCLA. And we have full cohorts for teens and adults. We also have a waiting list. So if this is something that folks are interested in, you guys are hearing it first, because we just made this decision yesterday. Our new cohort of teens and another cohort of adults will start on Monday, May 8th. And we'll run, well, it's going to end up being 20 weeks because there are some, it's really a 16-week course, but it'll end up running 20 weeks because there are some holidays in there that we don't think people will come out for. So it will run from May 8th to September 18th on Monday afternoons. And Patty, I can make sure that you get the flyer with information on that so that you have that to put in the life binder and all of that. We're really excited about this, and we keep these groups small. So 8 to 10 individuals for teens and 10 to 12 for adults. There will be more of them coming in the fall and through the winter as well. This is kind of our big new leap in programming, where we recognize that our folks really are looking for opportunities to connect and make friends. But if we don't talk about how we do that, then frequently those places and spaces become places of anxiety rather than places of support. So, so this is a huge new area for us. We also continue to run, I'll just go back up here. We continue, you'll note, support groups. We have a support group for adults with autism. We have a variety of support groups for parents and caregivers, including one in Spanish. And I always want to make sure I plug that one because it is led by a native Spanish speaker. So really an area where we feel like often our Spanish community, our Hispanic community, is not always as connected because sometimes of a parental language barrier. And so we are making a deliberate push that direction. We also, I will tell you, are doing a Brown family support group through one of our local mosques, which is really kind of cool because they asked us to come in and do that. And I think that information is all on here, and you certainly can ask us for that. We still also run our, and I'm just going to highlight these really quickly for you, our other social programs. So sing and dance once a month in person for our preschoolers. It's an hour led by a music therapist on the second Saturday of the month. It's a super fun group. They sing, they dance, they play musical instruments. Our Kids Exploring Fun, which is also on the second Saturday of the month, because why have one program on the same day when you can have two? And that is a 2-hour program where our kids get to experience a variety of things, from crafts to physical activities to sensory activities. So I'm just also going to plug that coming up on May 11th is our fundraiser, our spring fundraiser, Art Across the Spectrum. And our kids in the last several months have made some really cool artwork, including this last week. They blew food coloring bubbles, which was a lot of fun on paper. It was the mess. I was the one who looked like an Easter egg by the time I was done, y'all. But they had so much fun doing that. And it's such beautiful art that we'll actually have some of their framed art to show the gifts of autism and the fun that we have in that. We also have our Teen Time Hangouts once a month, every second Friday. So that one's coming up this week, Friday. And we always play games, we have pizza, and then do some sort of physical activity and craft activity. So in March, we forgot to celebrate, I'm really sorry, but we forgot to celebrate March Madness. So we're celebrating March Madness in April. I guess you can do that. But we'll do some basketball themed something. And then our kids are also doing some polymer clay activities. And then we always play Pictionary, Uno, board games. So lots of fun. A great place for teens to come and practice the social skills that they're learning in our peers program. Teen time and adult game night, we also hold on Fridays. So teen time once a month, let me say this, teen time once a month on the second Friday of the month is in person. The other Fridays are virtual. And we continue to hold that, and our adult game night is all virtual. And right now they don't want to be in person because we have people from 4 countries and 7 states or something who come. And so they really want to hang with their friends from all over the world, which is kind of cool. So I talked really fast, but I'm going to stop there. And if people have questions, I would love to entertain them.
I think there was one question out there, and you sort of answered it. The last part of the question was, are they all in person? And you had mentioned some were virtual and in person, but they were asking about the age ranges for the teen and adult peer programs.
Oh, great. Yeah. Thank you for that, because I totally forgot that. I don't know why you didn't all like psychically just read my mind. But so for the teen peers program, it is 13 to 17. And for the adult program, it is 18 and above. Now, I will say that anyone who has an 18-year-old or nearly 18-year-old, that's probably worth a conversation with one of us, because they may be ready for peers for adults and they may not be. The biggest difference, quite frankly, in peers for teens and peers for adults is in peers for adults, we do talk about dating. We do not, I have to say this, we do not talk about sex, but we do talk about dating. Right? So how do you date? What does a date look like? How would you ask someone on a date? How do you see if someone is even available? Do they like you? And so if your teen is not ready for that, then we want to be really conscious of that as well, because we spend some time on that. I think I just saw something else pop up. Now it just went away.
Yeah. There's are you able to connect us to therapists that specialize in autism for adults?
Yes, as connectors, we are able to do that. What I will do is put my email in the chat, and then I would say, folks, email us. It may or may not be me emailing you back, but I will pass it on to my team, and we will make sure that we figure out what kind of a therapist you want, whether it's diagnosis, whether it's other supports, and we'll figure out what kind of therapist is needed. But yes, we certainly can connect you.
Thank you, Mary Helen. And just to clarify too, it's not just autism based, right? I mean, it is autism based, but I mean, other with learning disabilities can reach out and say, hey, can we join?
Yes, we do. We never check a diagnosis. So if anything we do feels like it might fit for your child, I don't care whether they have autism or not, we certainly will take them in any program that we have. Just because autism is in our name, and because it is, Amyi Iten said it really well about Down syndrome, where that is the lens or the focus in which we work, that does not exclude you from being in our programs. Just understand that we might talk about it from an autism lens.
Thank you. And I would recommend you go to their website, and you send out a newsletter every month, so you can reach out to, you know, I think there's this place assigned to for the newsletter on your website, right? That's great information. All their activities coming up, and we try to share that as much as possible too.
Yeah. And we also try to share a lot of our community partners and community events in our newsletter. So I will apologize for sometimes it being a little long, but the idea is we want to make sure that you're connected, right, to, pun intended there, to everything in the community that we know is happening to the best of our ability.
So I see she put her, Mary Helen put her email there. So if you have any more questions, I know she has to go, but if she has any more, or if you have any more questions, feel free to reach out to her. Or if you, you can send it to me and I'll forward it to her too, whichever you're comfortable with. But take time to check out their website. But thank you, Mary Helen, and thank you for jumping on.
Yep, I apologize that I have to jump off, but thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
You too.
All right. Teresa or Ann, is it all right if Teresa goes next or? Okay. I'll just turn it over to Teresa then. And you want me to share your presentation on my screen?
Sure, that would be great.
Okay, go ahead and start talking until I get that uploaded.
Okay, super.
loaded
Hi,
here.
everybody. My name is Teresa Harris, and I am a parent and advocate. And I was counting the years. It's been like 18 years since I have been on this journey of helping families. So excited to be here today. First and foremost, I'm a parent. My son was diagnosed with autism at age 3. He is now 23 years old. And we started rapid prompting method when he was 8 years old. And the group, if you look in the far right corner on Facebook, if you want to find our group here, we have 412 members. And what's really interesting is it's parents and professionals. And so that first slide had our logo on it. There we go. Yeah, slide 1 on the bottom right there. So that's the logo you'll see when you come on to Facebook. If you'd like to join the community here, we would absolutely love to have you. So we can move to the second slide. So when I was talking, I wrote, it says, when you're ready for a change. Ryan and I went through a journey with RPM. And before that, we had done every possible thing to help him. We did, ABA, we did PECS, we did PT, OT, speech, and so much of that is so good. But we came to a crossroads where I had really wanted to find a way that I could better communicate with my son, and so many things that I knew were in there, and I just couldn't reach him, and I couldn't find a way through to him having a voice. And so RPM came along, and we have been doing RPM as a family for 15 years now. He started when he was 8, and hands down, it is the best method. It is life-changing when you can find your child's voice. And I will get into kind of a little bit of the details for those of you who may not know what RPM is, but we have a community here. We have parents and professionals that are passionate about RPM. We do walking groups. We do camps that are local, who are professionals coming in, who are certified to do camps and train and work with children. So locally, we are RPM, but what you're looking at right now are the national Facebook groups. And the clinic, HALO, we'll first cover that. HALO is Helping Autism with Learning and Outreach. Soma, Mukapuje, and Tito are the founders of the method. They have a clinic in Austin, named HALO. And the other group that you'll find a great help and great support with is called Unlocking Voices Using RPM. Both groups are on Facebook. HALO has a website that you can reach out and register for camps. Unlocking Voices has, close to 10, over 10,000 people now who are parents, professionals learning the method. And you'll have videos, you'll have camps that are going on, you'll find providers on that site. So those two things and our local group here in Cincinnati are your 3 best ways to become connected to our community around, here in the area and then nationally. So, so let's go on to the next slide if you can. That would be great. I thought I would spend a little bit of time just explaining what RPM is for those of you who may not know what RPM is. And then at the end, I'm going to give you some key points and takeaways that can help you to get started. So rapid prompting method is actually, it's a very interesting story. Soma Mukapuje was from India. She came to the United States through the BBC found out about her, saw the success she was having with children with autism, and was filming her. She's also been on 60 Minutes, if you might have seen her there. But they had no name for the method because she was just another mom, just like me, you know, who's working with her son to find a way to help him. And the BBC director or the cameraman said, you know, well, you're doing a lot of rapid talking, you're doing a lot of, you know, prompting to initiate, let's call it rapid prompting. And that is how the name began. So I thought that was kind of interesting, but the next slide we could go to. So rapid prompting has been around for about 2 decades now, but it is growing worldwide and it's growing fast. It's now in South Africa, Australia, New Zealand, excuse me, the United Kingdom, Canada. There are RPM partnerships forming around the world, Ireland, and then there's also funding resources. So say you're interested and you're like, you know, I want my son or daughter to be able to do RPM and you don't have the funds. There is an organization called RPM Support, and they will help fund you. Halo also has a funding arm that can help you to get these camps. So that's really a great funding source, just to let you know that. And of course, the main clinic in Austin, Texas is Halo, where the founder, Soma Mukapuje, does camps and consultations. There are now groups for homeschooling, and there are also a full list of RPM independent providers who are occupational therapists, speech therapists, special education teachers who saw the value in this method and took it on to learn and become certified. So that's super exciting. So we can go on to the next slide. I'm sorry I'm talking really fast because I'm just trying to get it all in. But some real quick background, RPM was developed by Soma Mukapuje. She was a teacher and a chemistry professor who has a son with autism. She also has her secondary degree in education. She is the founder of Halo Clinic, helping autism through learning and outreach. And she does have a website, so you can connect directly to her. You know, she has been doing this, and by far, she is just an outstanding educator. And if you have an opportunity to go to a camp with her, I highly recommend it. And she keeps those prices affordable for families. And so it's just an opportunity of a lifetime if you can do that. So we'll go on to the next slide. So early on, when I started with Ryan, there were no books. There were no manuals. There was just Soma, and you would get a DVD and you would learn, and then I'd come back once a year, go to Austin and come back. Now the method has evolved, the support, the type of, you know, professionals that have emerged in the field with RPM. So you have now manuals with that's like a complete guide, curriculum guide, a book on communication, a book on motor skills, a book on behavior, a book on expressive language. So Soma is writing these books to parents, for parents. There is a lot of content that is for teachers and educators as well. So if you had to pick one thing, if you're like, oh, I'm kind of interested, I would begin by purchasing the book Understanding Autism Through Rapid Prompting Method. So initially in our group here locally, we would go through the book together and we would learn together and have panels and kind of ask questions about certain things. But now there are so many resources, so many providers that you can really immerse yourself in the method. So that's very exciting. The next slide would be great. So here's a definition of RPM. I'm going to kind of start in the middle. RPM involves learning through your senses and reasoning. It's making choices, spelling, writing, speaking to communicate. Its use of senses, or what we call open learning channels, which we'll get into a little bit later here, for a better understanding and application for information. And it is a teaching method that's tailored to each student's open learning channel. And what that means, and that's one of the biggest things that was interesting to me and why it is such an effective method, is because this method of education is geared specifically to your child's sensory system. Or for example, my son Ryan, he has what we call open learning channels. He is much more auditory than he is visual. And so many of the things that were visual schedules, visual text, he could not see, he could not look at, he could not use his eyes in order to understand visual information. So in RPM, as an instructor, you learn how to understand these open learning channels, that he is much more auditory. So his teaching, kind of like Helen Keller in a way, that he was taught for the first 2 years by teaching auditorily. So a rose is soft, like for example, if you're teaching about a flower, say a rose has long stem, it has a beautiful scent, it is red, it is soft, it has soft petals. So the essence of a rose is described to him auditorily. So that's just when I speak of open learning channels, which we'll get into more, but that's the difference, because some children are bouncing around from being auditory to tactile to kinesthetic and so they present as if they don't comprehend the information. But as an instructor of RPM, and as you as a parent learn how to read their stimming to determine what open learning channel they're trying to use, like say they're flicking their hands like this is what? So there's a lot of movement, right? It also is a visual presentation they're needing. So you take that stim and not stop the stim, but you use it to teach. So I would be writing something, I would be moving my pencil, I would be taking that stimming environment that they're using to learning. And every child presents at the moment learning is taking place. Their sensory neuro environment is changing and shifting. And as an instructor who's skilled, they can gain that joint attention so learning can take place. So that's kind of a really short explanation. I think we can go on to the next page. So again, as I mentioned before, it's teaching through RPM incorporates the use of students' strongest sensory channel in order to maximize their understanding of information that's being presented. So you have a visual and an auditory are your primary learning channels. Your secondary learning channels are very tactile. If you have a kiddo who's sticking things in his mouth and he's touching things and he's smacking the wall. So what do you do with that kid? So he's reaching out tactile, right? He's very tactile. So you take that to learning. You would give him a pencil. You would have him write. So you would engage the student, not by disciplining them to say no hands down, but you're taking that sensory need to the learning moment. So go ahead on to the next slide real quick. So for RPM, one of the things people are like, well, what is the difference between that and a teacher in school? There's a huge difference because when you're looking at a student, you can look through the lens of behavior, or you can look at the lens through sensory system and the neuroscience, the brain, and that component of their brain. So those sensory systems, because how you're, encoding the world around you is simply through your eyes, through your ear gates, through touch, right? That creates your perceptions. So that's how, so one of the things with RPM, you'll see for visual students, they will be writing keywords on the paper, not a flashcard. They will be drawing pictures. They will be tracing shapes, right? So that's all using what? For Ryan, you wouldn't do that because he couldn't get his eyes to the table. He might look at it, but he couldn't focus on it. So you would use pictures. With auditory kids, the opposite, you would tear the paper. One of the things I always thought about, Ryan would never look at a book. He would simply tear the book up. But all along, he said the sound of the paper, he was listening, right? So we use tearing of the paper to make choices, to gain attention. So when I rip that paper, they hear it, they know to attend. Tapping choices, fluctuation of voice, tone, how you speak to them, if you're using a soft voice, or if you're using a loud voice, if you're using slow voice, all of those things gain joint attention for them to be able to learn and acquire knowledge. So there's tactile, we use tape, we use giving them a pencil, we use hand over hand writing, which is very tactile. We use tapping, like tap a reminder on their knee, like, okay, it's time to choose. If we're giving them 2 choices or 3 choices, and we're teaching curriculum and academics. So we're using these open learning channels to make the child successful. So the next one, we'll go to the next one real quick. And the key is, and this is where it all comes down. When you gain and you're able to teach to that child's open learning channel at that moment, and you're beating that stim. So when it becomes so excitatory that you're redirecting this to the table, when the echolalia or talking or screeching is so loud, but you're competing with your voice, you're speeding up your voice, you gain joint attention. And that is how, it's kind of like a maxed out ADD or ADHD presentation. But when you get joint attention, learning takes place. And this is where the kids can progress from simple 2 choices to, and we'll go to the next slide. So they'll be progressing, but through a process through RPM, which is in the next slide. But this slide shares, is RPM just communicating on a letterboard? No. Here are some of the areas that you are engaging your child in. So you're working on motor planning, lifting the pencil, pointing, touching, tapping, iPad, speaking, visual, ocular motor, handwriting, keyboarding, spelling, grammar, communication, listening, comprehension, choice making, right? All of this is accessed through RPM, through the method itself. And, when I was with Ryan, they were talking years ago about him cutting and gluing on an IEP meeting. And his behavior was crazy. He was getting more aggressive. And I said, what we're doing isn't working. I don't care about cutting or gluing. I need to find a way to communicate to him, for him to listen, for him to make choices, for him to initiate, for him to be able to motor plan. And that's when I made the change. And many people now, thousands of people around the world, are realizing that the neuroscience behind the method is strong. And sensory integration is the key for these children to be able to learn. And then the next slide we have is what I was talking about a minute ago, which was progression. How do they progress? So you have a 3-year-old, right? You have a 70-year-old, you have a 20-year-old, a 50-year-old. There's no age limit with this. But it starts out with simple 2 choices. You learn how to choose and what to choose. And it's done through age-appropriate academics. So, for example, if I had a 3-year-old, I would be teaching Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. I would be teaching numbers, but I would be doing it in a method with through paper choices and writing and speaking and all of those, watching that child's stems in order for learning to take place. Then it would progress to 3 choices, maybe 4 written choices. Then we move on to a 1-line letter board. So you're going to teach spelling, and it would go to a large stencil. It would go to a full 26. So think about it. We're visually presenting just 2 words. Then we're going to present 6 letters. Then we're going to present 12 letters, then a 26 letter board, right? That's a lot of visual scanning, right? You have 26 letters, right? And then you're going to move to a place where it's flat on the table, then it's typing and speaking. So in many of the things they talk about is your fine motor skills, and that fine motor fingers are connected to speech. You can talk to any OT, any SLP, so you're using your pointing, you're using your fingers, you're using pencils to point through stencils, which is very tactile. And you're able to shape the learning environment at that moment. Maybe some days they're intense. Well, I'll just back down to 2 choices. And so needless to say, it's fluid. It meets the child where they're at. So for example, when Ryan was doing schooling, which I mean, for me to even say that now 15 years later, I'd have never thought it. He still cannot tie his shoes, but he can tap. He can't do that fine, extensive fine motor, right? To tie a shoe, but he can type, and he can point to letters. So, am I saying this cures autism? Absolutely not. But it gives them a way through that they can communicate to some degree and level, right? And now we have kids writing poetry, graduating, going to college, who cannot speak, but can point on the letterboard and then transfer it to a keyboard. So it is life-changing for so many families, because you want to know, what are they thinking? What's going on? How do you help them? So the final slide, if we can move on to it, getting started. Join Halo. There's a website right there. You can look at them on Facebook. You can join Unlocking Voices using RPM. Huge, massive amounts, years of information and parent connections worldwide. Utilize the manual, find local providers, which are posted under the files of Unlocking Voices. So it's constantly being updated, because more and more professionals and parents are getting certified. So there's a list that's kind of being updated. You will find on Unlocking Voices using RPM. Plan to attend a 4-day instructional camp with your child. That's how I started. I took Ryan to the camp, and we were there for 4 days, and it was 2 sessions each day. And that was the beginning of, and that's how most parents begin, along with using the manual. To kind of get a better understanding, and go to the websites to get a better understanding before you go to a camp. And then attend level 1 trainings. So say you're committed, and you're like, I'm doing this, so you can attend the level 1 training. I did that, and there's progression of training if you're a professional watching this, to level 1, 2, and 3. And we have 2 providers locally here that are on the file you can connect with. And then virtual consultations is another way. Or finding out local camps that are coming to Cincinnati. You can find those on our website, Cincinnati, RPM Cincinnati Community. But yeah, that's it. I hope that helps someone today. I am the facilitator of the RPM Cincinnati Community Group. So if you want to talk to me directly, join the group. We'll welcome you, and you can ask me and all the other parents and professionals questions and get you started. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Let me stop share here real quick. There, I can see everybody now. I was following you on Facebook over the years and stuff, and I thought everything I saw that was being taught, I had so many parents talk about communications and things like that, and I thought, oof, this would be really good for many of our parents to hear, because this is something the first time you've presented on SALT, but it's great technique or a great thing to learn about. And let me just see here what we have. Unlocking Voice. We have the Facebook link in there. Your Halo.
Halo.
Yeah, we have that link. And then if you can put your email, looking here.
Sure.
Yeah, that would be great for any questions, because I know this is a stumbling block for many parents.
Absolutely, Patty, and as autism is progressing, and we are really finding a better understanding of the human brain and how our sensory integration is such a hindrance to many of our children. So one of the things my son said to me, I pulled out an old IEP skill, and I said, Ryan, match this, crayon to this picture and this color to here. And he had to move objects on the table, and then he had to think about it and then tell me what colors these objects were. And he said to me, Mom, I am not stupid. Hard to look with my eyes, move my body, and think. It's like a stroke. Are they stupid? Are they not in there? No, they're in there, but their motor plan, they can't get their body to look. A lot of the kids look away, right? Because their muscles, they can't get their eyes to the location. Then their ears go out, they can't hear, then they hear, then their bodies aren't moving. So what do they present? Your children present as if they're not cognitively there, but that language there is there. They just can't get it out. They can't control their senses, those open learning channels, to make and they need help. They need those prompts, not to initiate what to say, but to initiate the focus. And that is the key. And so I encourage, so parents, if you do anything, prove to yourself this method and go for it, because it is life-changing for thousands of people now. So yeah. Anyway,
I think it's great when our son or daughters can communicate what they are feeling when they finally can. Our son, at a certain age, he said, what goes in? He said, it seems like it gets scrambled and I can't get it out. And he was able to explain this to me. He was like a teenager or older, but we didn't know how to deal with him when he was younger,
Right. And that's what's the beauty of the method, is because, you can say, with looking at the kiddo. So I would be talking to Ryan very quickly, and I'd be talking to him and just simply tapping choices. So if he couldn't look with his eyes, if I said, Ryan, today we're going to learn about George Washington. Did I say George Washington or, Bill Clinton? And if I tap those answers, right? If his eyes didn't see me write the word, he could hear George Washington was to the left, Bill Clinton was to the right. You know, so you're using their sensory systems, their best, strongest, which my son's was auditory. And many people say, well, many people say, well, they're visual. You know, people with autism are visual. We're learning differently, that there are different learning styles for different children. So this incorporates a customized method for that kiddo at that moment. When their eyes aren't working, when their ears keep going off, or they're holding their ears, they can't stand the sound. So you could write it, you could speak softly. So these methods it's a skill to learn on how to teach, and then you become trusted and your child connects with you. Because, and my final word is, you want to be able to talk to your kid, not a teacher or a therapist. You have them for the rest of your life. You need to become their teacher together and communicate and learn together. And it has brought us together in a way that I'll cherish for the rest of my life. So anyways, there you go.
There, thank you.
Call me if you need me and you have any other questions. So, okay.
Make sure we have the correct links for everything in the chat box for your Facebook and everything. And if you can go ahead and add your email too, just make sure.
I'll do it all.
Thank you, Teresa. And I'm going to turn it over to Anne, and I made you co-host, Anne, so you can share your screen.
Sounds good. Hello, everyone. My name is Anne Tapia, and I am going to share with you this evening about Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities, and specifically the team that I sit on, the Community Life Engagement Team. So at first, I'm going to go ahead and drop my email in the chat because I had that ready to go. The Ohio Department of Developmental Disabilities serves the whole state of Ohio and the whole lifespan. Overall, the mission is to support people with developmental disabilities and their families so that there's a focus on health and safety, community access, and increasing opportunities for meaningful employment. So that means there are about 96,000 Ohioans who access supports and services through their local county boards of developmental disabilities and receive support from providers in the community through that system. But what I really want us to be thinking about is not so much the services and the supports, but rather that we're thinking about how we support people to make good informed decisions and understand what options are. Because to me, that's what we're doing within the team that I sit in, the Community Life Engagement Team, is really helping people to be in their community in a way that's meaningful to them. So I have up here the map, and this link will take you to this map. Whoops. Well, I'll have to grab that and drop it in the chat later. But if you hover over the actual map itself, this is just an image of it, you'll see, regardless of what county you land on, who your people are across the state. So there are folks like myself who are designated to support different regions. I'm in the Southwest Ohio, and the area I cover is part of Region 3, or sorry, all of Region 3 and part of Region 4. So the red and kind of teal section at the bottom of the state, but there's somebody like me in the whole state. So in addition, there are folks who are focused on supporting the Ohio ISP rollout, folks who are focused on incident reports, early intervention, provider support and relations, really almost any kind of support that you're looking for. There's somebody at DODD who is trying to serve as a liaison between the local county board and the state level. And they're accessible and contact information is out there. So please look for who your contacts are and engage with us. So to speak more specifically about the community life engagement team, our goal is to support folks to think about employment in the community, help people to be really innovative and try to break through those barriers that are preventing people from being engaged in the way that they want to in the community. Our hope is to think about the partnerships that exist in the community and really leverage those in a way that is helpful and support the providers who are doing good work to keep doing that good work, and then create some change and support kind of creative thinking in ways that we know we need to grow and get better. We work across the state. So we, as I mentioned, are broken up into those regions. And the two big initiatives that the community life engagement team is focused on are employment first and technology first. And I'm going to say more about that in a moment, but there's kind of three core areas that we focus on. Person-centered planning, really the idea that we have to be having really individualized conversations. And I should have shifted this language on here on the slide, but I really love the concept of person-driven planning, that really it's the person who should be driving their whole life, right? And guiding the direction of their future by as much as is possible, leading the conversation and making sure that the whole team is hearing their voice. Community employment, again, as I mentioned, that employment first initiative, which can look like a lot of different things. And that's the beauty of it being person driven, is that it should be about what that person wants. And so for some, that's part-time employment. For others, that's volunteer. For others, it's not working at all. And so it's really thinking about what does that mean for each individual person and how do we help them get to where they want to be. And then community membership, which incorporates really fostering the most interdependent kind of life that we can offer. I think that, none of us are truly independent. I still call my mom all the time and have her talk me through questions that I have or challenges that I'm experiencing. I lean on my partner, right? I lean on my family. And so folks with disabilities, I think, we really push this idea of independence, and that is important. We want people to be doing as much as they can self-sufficiently. However, that's not to say that they're suddenly going to be all by themselves. We don't want people isolated. That's not the life that we want. We want them engaged in the community. And, so how are we helping people to lean on their network in ways that allow them to be as self-sufficient as they possibly can be? And part of that includes technology, that we're thinking about how can tech allow for more autonomy and choice and independence in our day-to-day activities that we're engaged in. So as I mentioned, community employment, the idea is to ensure that everybody has the option of earning money and contributing to the community and finding a fit for employment that is bringing personal purpose and joy. And I think that's what we all want, is a job that gives us a sense of enjoyment and purpose. But what that means for each person can really vary. The hope is that those person-driven conversations are helping to figure out what is the right combination for that person. What are they hoping for? And then how do we leverage the network within their community that they have to try out things that may or may not work for them, and helping them to find opportunities that may lead to that longer term goal that they have. And what we know is when people have that kind of purpose in their life, that they do better overall, that there's an increase in their relationships in general, that they have better outcomes from a health perspective. The quality of life is better. Self-esteem goes up. All of those natural supports are increasing. So, we are focused on that because we know that the outcomes are good for people. So Employment First was launched by Governor Kasich in 2012. So we are 11 years into Employment First. But it's a philosophy. It's not a program. It's not a service. It's really this idea that everybody with a disability is capable of working. And, you know, whether that's somebody who is using their voice to communicate or not, whether that's somebody who requires a lot of supports because of behavioral needs or they don't, right? We should really be thinking about all as we think about employment, and really that it's the first option that we're thinking through, but it's not the only option that we're talking about. So the place on the path is this kind of guide post for us to be thinking about where people are. And, you know, all of us have been in these various phases in our life and will be in these various phases in our life and different stages of life. And that's okay, right? Like, you know, you may be in a place where you're just not sure that you want to work, but also you might not know enough about what work could mean, you know, and so helping to explore what that may look like. Or that you know you want a job, actively pursuing, and so then we're pulling in those supports to help in that arena. Or perhaps somebody who is employed, but they're working a job that for them is a stepping stone to what they hope to get to later down the road. So helping people to always figure out where they are and what is that next step for them. The other initiative is the Tech First initiative, which was signed again by Governor Kasich in 2018. So we are, you know, in the stages of figuring out how best to support people with technology. I think the caution that I want to give in this is that a lot of times people go straight to remote supports when we start talking about technology, that there's cameras in the home, that there's somebody who's always watching. And that is not what we're talking about. It could be, that could be an option and something that could be explored. But there are so many ways to think about how technology can enhance our lives. I mean, even just what we do on a daily basis, plugging into a Zoom or being on our smartphones or, you know, the various apps that we use all day long to get, you know, using GPS to get to and from places, or our reminders on our phone. All of these things that we do on a regular basis, we really need to be thinking about how we support people with disabilities to also have that access to technology. Because if we don't, if we're not having those conversations to say, how are we enhancing your life with technology, we're leaving people behind, because it is so embedded in our culture, in our community, that technology is everywhere in all the things. And so we really need to ensure that we're keeping that equitable pace for people with disabilities to also have tech accessible to them. The other piece about tech priorities are that we're thinking about how tech can increase safety, independence, and control here is not that we are controlling people, right? It's the idea that we're offering the person the choices and the ability to control what their destiny, what their day, what their life looks like. And that technology can be a solution to unmet needs. And we really need to do that work to figure out what those unmet needs are. And think through how tech could be one of those aspects. And importantly, that it's across the lifespan, that we're not just thinking about tech at any certain age. Transition is a great time to think about it, but let's also think about it at early intervention. And let's also think about it when we're older adults as well. So we want to be sure that tech is part of all of the aspects of the lifespan. Kind of hit on this already, but the quote from Judy Heumann, that for most of us, tech makes things easier, but for a person with a disability, it really makes things possible. So we want to ensure that we're thinking about all the possibilities as we think about technology. I want to share this guide that was created to break down the difference between assistive tech and remote supports. Again, remote supports may include cameras, but doesn't have to. It could be there's a local home that has heat sensors as their remote supports because of concerns about fire setting. So, you know, there's no cameras at all. It's really truly just heat sensors that is triggering the person on the other end to be responsive. There are door alarms, there are window alarms. There's all kinds of ways to be thinking about remote supports. And then assistive tech does not have to be tied to remote support. So you could have assistive technology without having a third party on the other end who is responsive to the person with the disability being triggered by one of these technology resources. There can be these assistive technology resources that exist alone without that layer of support, a person on the other side of it. And that runs the gamut. Again, it's one of these, like, the reason I feel comfortable in being a resource around technology is because it changes every day. So I don't have to know the technology. I would not claim to know the technology because it is this ever evolving resource. And so it's really about getting connected to the resources that exist in the community who are staying up to date with, here's this latest and greatest technological invention that could be a solution to unmet needs. The backside of this flyer has frequently asked questions that I think are helpful if you're kind of dipping your toe in the water of how can technology be helpful in my life, and for SSAs to be the service and support administrators to be having these conversations with families as well. Ultimately, all of this, it starts with a plan, right? Like, we really need to have good conversations with people, understand who an individual is, bring that whole team together to ensure that all of the players on the team understand what the person is wanting, who they are as an individual. And then we start to align what are some of those resources that we bring in, whether that's technology or it's getting connected to these various entities that are in the community, like we heard from tonight, the DSAGC and Autism Connections and RPM, and how are we ensuring that those resources are meeting what the person's wants and needs are. And then, of course, documenting that in a way that everybody can get on the same page and work together for. So just a bit about that planning process is, I think it comes down to making sure that people know what options are. And that's why things like SALT are so great, that you get to hear little bits and pieces from a ton of different resources and understand what some options can be, as well as thinking about, how is this person going to contribute to the community? And let's discover more ways. None of us stop at, any age just because we've graduated from high school or we've gotten a job or whatever it may be. We still continue to engage in the community. So let's keep looking for opportunities to be in the community and discover new ways to be connected. And that then leads to a community. And that's what we all want. We all want to be in spaces and places where we feel known, where we feel seen. So how are we ensuring that meaningful connection is happening for the folks with disabilities, for your children and for the people that are supported? So bottom line, this is thinking about how it's not just being in the community, right? It's not just this idea that people are showing up to places. It's about truly being involved in the community, having connections with people, that it is having a valued role and that there's some contribution to the community. We don't want this to just be fun or social, right? It's about what that gives to the person, what meaning it gives to their life, and what they're giving to other people by being in those places and spaces as well. Because when we do that, it means that people are empowered. They see that sense of choice and autonomy in their lives. It breaks down that isolation that is truly deadly. There is just really gross research out there about the impact of isolation. And so we know that we need to make an impact on how we're ensuring people are not isolated, especially folks with disabilities and their families, where it really can be quite isolating. And that these interests, that the community connections are tied to interests and strengths, and that then leads to success, which can be really individualized based on what a person is wanting. A bit about the outcome. I think this becomes one of these things that, especially on teams and those who are connected to the county boards of developmental disabilities, that they're really driving the outcome component of it. sorry, I opened the chat and that distracted me. I will answer in just a moment, that they're outcome driven, and that can get kind of hung up in the conversation. But what it really boils down to is, what are people interested in, and how do we ensure that that what we're working toward is based off of what the person's wants and needs are. So it's asking good questions like, what makes them happy? What are they interested in doing? And then as we think about the important 4 kinds of questions, we bring in some of those health and safety, and consider what has been tried and what didn't work and where we want to go moving forward. The final piece that I want to just mention is that another component to the work that I do and the other community life engagement team members do is support the providers. Our system is not perfect. I am sure you're not surprised to hear that, right? And it's one of the reasons that I sit in the seat. It's because I want to be in a position where I can be supporting change, and our system needs to change. And so that is a component of what we do, is to support providers and hold their hands and figure out how to get them to a space where they are really truly doing good individualized supports for people, and helping them to think about, what does community integration mean that's meaningful for each person, and then building their programs around the people that they're supporting, and not a menu of services that are available. And so we're doing that in a variety of different ways, and just want to say it to you, if there's a way that you want to connect me to providers to be supportive to them, happy to do that. But also just so you know that that work is being done, because we know there's tons that needs to be enhanced within our community, and we want to see that continue to grow and evolve. I have some resources that I have included in here, a ton of different ones, just knowing the transition stage that you folks are thinking about. I have several that are thinking about employment supports, thinking about some of that person-centered planning, charting the life course. I'm sure you've heard a number of times. The Job Seekers Guide, which is a really great resource, that are like individual modules, one that's focused on kind of safety, and another that's focused on soft skills and employability skills. And then some technology resources, the lending libraries across the state that are available, and the Ohio Tech Ambassadors, which are just fabulous, and would highly encourage you to connect with them if you are engaging in those technology conversations, because they are just such a wealth of resources. They have been there, done that, and cannot wait to support other people to try tech as well. My contact information. Okay, so I saw the chat, a question about, oh, let me stop screen sharing, sorry. A question about this presentation being in Spanish. I do not have it in Spanish. I can check and see with the team. I probably should have said from the get-go that I am all of 5 months into the job at DODD. And I don't know if anybody has done this in Spanish, but I know that we have some partners that would love to see us do more of that. And I would certainly be glad if there's a translator. I would love to work with a translator. So happy to talk about that more, Stephanie, and figure out if we can do some more along those lines.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Anne. And for those who don't know, Anne, if you have a question about anything, I think Anne is a good go-to person. I was only, like tonight, I highlighted a few support groups. I mean, there are so many out there. So if there's something specific, like to your situation, I think any of these know a lot of different other groups, a lot of support contacts. I know Anne does, for sure. Like if you have a different diagnosis for your child and you need the support in that, there are so many groups out there, and I just was able to bring a handful of them together, but I know these guys know a lot of people. So, and Anne, you did include your email. Just also wanted to follow up too, you mentioned your SSA. So tomorrow night, we're going to be talking with, now it's Butler County Board of DD, and then we're going to have also OOD available, but we're going to be talking about services and what we're focusing on. What does the county board do? What does that look like? It's not going to be just Butler County, but we're going to look at what does a county board of developmental disabilities, how can they support you? then later in the month, what can I ask my SSA? Because I know there's a lot of parents that don't realize what they can talk to their SSA about. It's like everything. So, so I wanted to make sure, and that's during our lunch and learn. But we are having the Ohio Tech group talking at the end of the month too, Anne. So you'll get to know them as well. I was trying to cover a lot of things that where I know people get stuck, you know, whether it's living independently, whether it's communication, whether it's just your child's diagnosed, how do you deal with, you know, the certain hurdles that you experience. And there's just there's a lot of supports out there for you. But I just wanted to be able to bring a couple of them together so you knew that they were there. Let's see. I was writing stuff down here. Yeah, so I wanted to make sure I covered what we're going to be covering this month. So if there's any questions out there, I'm going to stop recording here in a minute, and you can ask freely or you can type it into the chat box. But I wanted to make sure everybody had this chance to get in touch with somebody, because I know that transition and that, I mean, those experiences are so hard sometimes and you don't know where to turn. So this is a good baseline. I think of all these people that were here today have a great base support that you can go to and email. So thank you all for speaking. I'm going to stop recording so people can unmute and ask if they need to. 1 second.